Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to this hour's English class. Sorry it's getting started a little bit late, a little bit past the hour. The website was updating, the Verbling website was updating for me, so I couldn't start the Hangout. But now we can get started, and we're going to be doing some reading, and it is a little bit of a longer article, so I hope we can get started pretty soon here. I'm going to put it up in the screen share so we can get started. If you had a reservation, then of course you can use it now. If you don't have a reservation but you want to join us to do this reading, then you can join us in just a second here. This article is from the New York Times. Like I said, it's a little bit long. It looks longer because I make it bigger, so it's not totally too long, but it's a good article here. It's about banks, and apparently some banks have been hacked. So we're going to read about this and find out what is happening. Here's the original from the New York Times. If you can open it, it has a little graphic here that kind of explains how it is possible that the hackers can infiltrate or get into the banks. And so certainly a modern day problem that we have to deal with, and that's called cyber security. So cyber security, keeping the internet safe, the information that goes across the computer waves safe. Okay, so let me just say hi to people. Hi, Wellington. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And Hamit's back, and Ampuro, you're back. Okay, good. All right. Oh, we have Emirhan. Hi, Emirhan. Your microphone is muted. Emirhan?
Yes, hello.
Hi, am I saying your name right? Or
Yes, right, Emirhan. It's true.
Okay, Emirhan. Where are you calling from?
From Turkey.
From Turkey? What part of Turkey?
West of Turkey,
Nice.
along the Aegean Sea.
Okay, nice. Well, you have a fellow countryman in here with you, Hamid.
Yes, I saw his name.
Okay, good. Okay, guys, well, why don't we go ahead and get started, and if some people join us, that's okay, but it is a little bit longer, so I want to make sure we have time to finish reading it in this hour, since we only have about 50 minutes left for this hour. Okay, like I said, it's called Bank Hackers Steal Millions Via Malware. So hackers, you're probably familiar with that term. Hackers, the ones who get into other people's computers, emails, programs, things like that. And sometimes they are doing bad things. And one of the bad things is to steal people's money. And so they have stolen millions via malware. So malware being type of software that's not good for your computer, like spyware or something. So we're going to be reading about this. I see some other people are joining us too. Okay, good. We're just about to get started, you guys, so come on in and we'll get started. The way I'm going to do this is I am going to read, I'll try to read a little bit more quickly myself, and the reason why I'm reading is for you to hear, so it's part of the listening, hearing how I'm pronouncing the words and that type of thing. Also gives you a chance to see if you can just understand what you're hearing, but you can read along as well, and then you'll have a chance to read some, and then I'll go over some of the vocabulary. I'm not going to go over everything, so you might not understand every word in the article. That's okay. Just try to understand the main ideas, and maybe if you don't understand a word, you can try to understand it through what we call context clues. So what would make sense for that word to mean? That's kind of the idea. What could it mean? You just kind of make an educated guess. Okay. All right. So hi, everybody. I'm not going to say hi to you individually because I want to get started because we already are starting a little late because the Verbling website was updating. Okay. So this is taking place, written from Palo Alto, California. In late 2013, an ATM in Kiev started dispensing cash at seemingly random times of day. No one had put in a card or touched a button. Cameras showed that the piles of money had been swept up by customers who appeared lucky to be there at the right moment. But when a Russian cybersecurity firm, Kaspersky Lab, was called to Ukraine to investigate, it discovered that the errant machine was the least of the bank's problems. Okay, so have a problem here. Wellington, why don't we go ahead and start with you? We'll start on that side and go the other way there.
Okay, Palo Alto, California. In late 2013, at a.m. in Kiev started dispensing cash at a seemingly random time of day. No one had put in a card or touched a button. Cameras showed that the piles of money had been swept up by customers who appeared lucky to be there at the right moment. But when a Russian cybersecurity firm, Kaspersky Lab, was called to Ukraine to investigate, it discovered that the errant machine was the least of the bank's problem.
Okay, good. If people can mute their microphones, then that way we won't hear any of the background noises or computer keyboard tapping, that kind of stuff. So I hear a little bit. I don't know who it is. So, okay. Let me just go over a few things. So the ATM, that's the machine where you go and get your cash. It started to dispense. It started dispensing cash. So to dispense means to give. Like when you go to get cash, the machine dispenses cash to you. It gives you the cash. So it was doing it seemingly, so it seemed like it was just random. People didn't understand, like random times. And you didn't have to put in a card. Normally you have to put in your card, then you have to touch some buttons. You know how it works. But that wasn't even happening. It just was like random shooting out money is how you can also say. And cameras showed, so the video cameras, security cameras, showed that piles of money. A pile of money would be like a little mountain, a little hill of money, that's a pile, had been swept up. So not literally swept up like with a broom, but swept up meaning picked up by customers. So of course if you see this money's coming out of this machine and you're there, you're kind of lucky. You're one of the lucky ones to be there at the right moment. So if you were there and you saw this money, maybe you just picked it up, okay? But then the cybersecurity firm, so cyber meaning related to like the internet and security, and firm, a company. So this company went there to check it out, to investigate, to see what was the problem, and they discovered that the errant machine, so errant is describing the type of machine, so it's an adjective. Errant is when you're making a mistake, so to error or to make an error. So the machine was having problems, so like the problem machine, what was going on. But they discovered that that machine was the least of their problems. So the least, meaning it wasn't the most important thing they were having problems with. So that sets us up to figure out what was happening at the bank. The bank's internal computers used by employees who process daily transfers and conduct bookkeeping had been penetrated by malware that allowed cyber criminals to record their every move. The malicious software lurked for months, sending back video feeds and images that told a criminal group, including Russians, Chinese, and Europeans, how the bank conducted its daily routines according to okay. You want to read? Are you there? Okay, Paula.
Okay.
Hi. You can read this paragraph right there.
Okay. The bank's internal computers used by employees who process daily transfers and conduct bookkeeping had been penetrated by malware that allowed cybercriminals to record their every move. The malicious software lurked for months, sending back video feeds and images that told a criminal group, including Russians, Chinese, and Europeans, how the bank conducted its daily routines, according to the investigators.
Okay, so the internal computers, talking about the inside of the bank, so the computers that the bank uses for their own business transactions and things. So the employees were using those, and of course they process things daily, transfers and all kinds of stuff. So to process in terms of a bank just means they put it into the computer. So they're transferring money, they're conducting bookkeeping. That just means they're doing bookkeeping, taking care of their financial bookkeeping is when you enter in like the money, you know, is it going in, is it going out, where is it going, all of that kind of stuff. So these computers were penetrated. So we could say were or had been penetrated by. So they were penetrated, which means when you penetrate something, it means like to go inside. So this maliciousware, which is malware for short, got inside of these computers, and because of it, that software, that malicious software, that was allowing the criminals, and we call them cyber criminals, they could record their every move. So now it was like they were just watching. They could see everything that was going on day to day in these banks, in this bank's computers. So the software lurked for months. Lurked means it just hung around. So it was there on the computers, on their computers, for many months, and what it was doing was sending back. So sending back to some group, you know, the criminal group, sending to them video feeds, so they were able to see videos and images, so photos and things like that, and they were sending them to this criminal group, which included people, criminals from these different countries, different places around the world, and so they were learning about how the bank conducted its daily routines. To conduct means to do. You know, what were they doing every day? So that's what the investigators found out. They found out that the bank was being spied on, basically. They were being watched. And of course, when you watch what the bank's doing, then you can learn how you're going to be able to get money from them. Then the group impersonated bank officers, not only turning on various cash machines, but also transferring millions of dollars from banks in Russia, Japan, Switzerland, the United States, and the Netherlands into dummy accounts set up in other countries. In a report to be published on Monday and provided in advance to the New York Times, Kaspersky Labs says that the scope of this attack on more than 100 banks and other financial institutions in 30 nations could make it one of the largest bank thefts ever, and one conducted without the usual signs of robbery. Wow. Okay, Monica.
Then the group impersonated bank officers, not only turning on various cash machines, but also transferring millions of dollars from banks in Russia, Japan, Switzerland, the United States, and the Netherlands into dummy accounts set up in other countries. In a report to be published on Monday and provided in advance to the New York Times, Kaspersky Labs says that the scope of this attack on more than 100 banks and other financial institutions in 30 nations could make it one of the largest bank thefts ever, and one conducted without the usual signs of robbery.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so then we're following what happened. So the group, they got all this information, and then what they were able to do through the software was to impersonate. So that's when you pretend like you're somebody else. So they're pretending or impersonating themselves as bank officers. So that allows them to do certain things, like turning on the cash machines. The cash machines are the ATMs. So they were able to turn them on and then transfer millions of dollars. So that's another thing they could do kind of from behind the scenes. And that's what the hackers were able to do. They would set up dummy accounts. So a dummy account is a fake account. So it's not a real account. This is where they would transfer the money into these dummy accounts, and those were set up in other countries. That's why it ended up being 30 nations involved. Okay, so the report is going to be published on Monday, but they gave an advance copy to the New York Times, and that's why we're able to read this information now. And so the scope of this attack, the scope means like how big, how big was this attack? Well, pretty big, involving more than 100 banks and other financial institutions. So it could be different types of, not just banks, maybe some brokerage firms, things like this. 30 nations could make it one of the largest bank thefts. So from the word thief, a thief is a person who robs or steals, and so a bank theft. And it was conducted without the usual signs of robbery. So normally, the usual signs might be a bunch of guys with some guns going into a bank and with the masks, on and their faces covered up, that kind of thing. That would be like the typical sign of a robbery, a bank robbery. But now they weren't even able to see the faces of these people or know that it was even happening. So it took them a while until they discovered what was happening. The Moscow-based firm says that because of non-disclosure agreements with the banks that were hit, it cannot name them. Officials at the White House and the FBI have been briefed on the findings, but say that it will take time to confirm them and assess the losses. Kaspersky Labs says it has seen evidence of $300 million in theft through clients and believes the total could be triple that. But that projection is impossible to verify because the thefts were limited to $10 million a transaction, though some banks were hit several times. In many cases, the hauls were more modest, presumably to avoid setting off alarms. Okay, Lucas.
The Moscow based firm said that because of non-disclosure agreements with the banks that were hit, it cannot name them. Officials at the White House and the FBI have been briefed on the findings, but say that it will take time to confirm them and assess the losses. Kaspersky Labs says it has seen evidence of $300 million in theft through clients and believes that the total could be triple that. But that projection is impossible to verify because the theft were limited to 10 million transaction, though some banks were hit several times. In many cases, the hauls were more modest, presumably to avoid setting off alarms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Moscow-based firm that describes that the company, their headquarters are based in, or they're set in, or that's where they are, in Moscow. So that's what that means when you say Moscow-based firm. They're saying they're non-disclosure agreements. That's a common term whenever you have like a contract or something. Non-disclosure means you cannot disclose. To disclose means to tell somebody. So they have an agreement that their company cannot say who these banks were, that type of thing. They cannot disclose that information, so they cannot name them. They can't say, it's Bank of America or something like that. All right, so the officials at the White House have been briefed. That means they have been told. That's kind of an official word, briefing, like when you hear that on the news, if they're ever talking about politics and like the White House or something, the president was briefed, about something. It means he was told, he was given information. So the officials at the White House and the FBI, they have information about the findings, so what the research uncovered, what the investigators uncovered, but it's going to take time to confirm them. So to confirm means to make sure that it's right. So they're going to look over the material and confirm that yes, this did happen, and they're going to have to assess the losses. So they're going to have to evaluate how much money did these banks lose. The losses would be how much got stolen from them. That's a loss. All right, so it could be 300 million, could be more, possibly up to 900 million. But that projection, a projection is like an educated guess. It's kind of like like in the scientific method, you have the hypothesis. You know, you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. They're projecting out into what they think is possible. They think that it's impossible to verify, so they don't know that they can even really make a good evaluation or assessment of what actually happened, because it could possibly be impossible to verify or to confirm or to make sure that how much was actually stolen, because the thefts were limited. So if you only did 10 million a transaction, who knows how many actually took place. And some of the banks were hit. That means to get hit means they were that's when they stole the money. That's a hit there. So when the crime happens. Let's see, the hauls were more modest. The haul is the takeaway. How much money did they take? That's the haul. Was it 10 million? Maybe it was just 1 million, 2 million. That would be a more modest haul, so not so much, not taking so much. And that would be presumably, so when we say presumably, that means that's what we think. We presume that they were trying to do this to avoid setting off alarms. So, they didn't want people to discover what they were doing. So maybe they took less at a time, less than 10 million per transaction. The majority of the targets, so the banks that were being hit, that's the target, they were in Russia, but many were in Japan, the United States, and Europe. No bank has come forward acknowledging the theft, a common problem that President Obama alluded to on Friday when he attended the first White House summit meeting on cybersecurity and consumer protection at Stanford University. He urged passage of a law that would require public disclosure of any breach that compromised personal or financial information. But the industry consortium that alerts banks to malicious activity, the Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, that's the name of that, said in a statement that our members are aware of this activity. We have disseminated intelligence on this attack to the members, and that some briefings were also provided by law enforcement entities. Okay, Hamid.
The majority of the targets were in Russia, but many were in Japan, the United States, and Europe. No bank has come forward acknowledging the theft, a common problem that President Obama alluded to on Friday when he attended the first White House summit meeting on cybersecurity and consumer protection at Stanford University. He urged passage of a law that would require public disclosure of any breach that compromised personal or financial information. But the industry consortium that alerts banks to malicious activity, the Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, said in a statement that our members are aware of this activity. We have disseminated intelligence on this attack to the members, and that some briefings were also
provided.
Just a second, I lost. Were also provided by law enforcement entities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the targets that were hit, the majority of them, so that means most of them, were in Russia, but there are also some others in other countries as well. Okay, no bank has come forward. So to come forward in this case means to say, yes, we know about this. So nobody has spoken up. Nobody has said anything. That's what it means to come forward, to acknowledge, to say, yes, we know about the theft. It has happened. We were one of the ones that got hit. Nobody has said that yet. None of the banks have said that. But President Obama recognized that this is a common problem. He alluded to this which means he made a reference to it. So he didn't necessarily speak exactly to this particular theft, but he alluded to it, like it is a problem, and that's why he's wanting some type of law to be passed. So this meeting was about a summit meeting. That just means a meeting of all the people involved in this issue. So it was about cybersecurity and consumer protection. So people who buy things, especially like online, how can we protect their information? So he urged, he urged the passage of a law. That means he recommended, he suggested, he really wants it to happen. So he's saying, you can imagine him saying, we really need to pass this law to protect consumers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so he wants the passage of the law, which will require public disclosure. So again, the word disclosure means to tell. So you should have to tell the public if there is any breach, a breach in securities. That's what it means. So it means like you lose security. So for example, if a company notices they got hacked, like when Sony got hacked, that's a breach. So there's an attack on them, and so the security was compromised, we say. That means that it was no longer 100% secure. So you can, in a breach, you can get perhaps personal information like your name, birth date, social security number, phone number, address, things like that, or your financial information, bank account numbers, how much money you have in your accounts, that type of stuff. A consortium is like a group. So the industry group that alerts banks to malicious, so malicious meaning criminal here, criminal activity. They have a name, so this is the name of this group, and that's their job, is to alert or to tell banks that there's some problems, some criminal attacks on them perhaps. And so they have already said, yes, our members know about this. We have disseminated intelligence. Same idea of like just give information. So we have given information about this attack or on this attack to our members, so people in the industry know about this, and some briefings. Again, a briefing is when you give information to somebody. Could be in the form of like a press conference or a file, like an article, something like that. Could be top secret, whatever. And they also gave law enforcement entities, so like the FBI, CIA, police, those would be law enforcement entities. They gave them the information as well. The American Bankers, let me move this down. The American Bankers Association declined to comment, and an executive there, Douglas Johnson, said the group would let the Financial Services Center's statement serve as the only comment. Investigators at Interpol said their digital crimes specialists in Singapore were coordinating an investigation with law enforcement in affected countries. In the Netherlands, the Dutch High-Tech Crime Unit, a division of the Dutch National Police that investigates some of the world's most advanced financial cyber crime, has also been briefed. Okay, Emirhan. I don't know where the accent is.
Right. Okay. And the American Bankers Association declined to comment, and an executive there, Douglas Johnson, said the group would let the Financial Services Center's statement serve as the only comment. Investigators at Interpol said their digital crime specialists in Singapore were coordinating an investigation with law enforcement in affected countries. In the Netherlands, in the Dutch High-Tech Crime Unit, a division of the Dutch National Police that investigates some of the world's most advanced financial cybercrime, has also been briefed.
Okay. All right, so they declined to comment. So when you decline, you say no. So the American Bankers Association, they did not want to give a comment. They did not want to say anything about this information. And so they're going to let the Financial Services Center's statement serve as the only comment. So they're just letting the other group, that consortium there, letting them talk about it. So they didn't want to say anything. That's the idea. Let's see, digital crimes specialist. So a specialist is somebody who specializes in something. So they have digital crimes specialists, so crimes committed on the computers, and they are coordinating an investigation with. So to coordinate means to organize, to plan, to work together to investigate something or to perform some kind of activity. So they're coordinating with law enforcement, meaning the police or special services like FBI or something, in affected countries, so countries that were hit or have been hit. Okay. In the Netherlands, they also have their own high-tech crime unit. So it just says here that they have been briefed. They have also been briefed. I say they're saying has also because it's just talking about the unit. The unit has been, or the police have been briefed. Let's see, advanced financial cybercrime. So advanced means like, you know, pretty high security level breaches, that kind of thing. And I think, you know, if you walk away with a new word, it should be this word, briefed. They've been briefed. So everybody's giving briefings and being briefed. It just means they're being told what happened. The silence around the investigation appears motivated in part by the reluctance of banks to concede that their systems were so easily penetrated, and in part by the fact that the attacks appear to be continuing. The managing director of the Kaspersky North America office in Boston, Chris Doggett, argued that the Carbanak cyber gang, named for the malware it deployed, represents an increase in the sophistication of cyber attacks on financial firms. Wow, still happening. Amparo.
The silence around the investigation appears motivated in part by the reluctance of banks to concede that their systems were so easily penetrated, and in part by the fact that the attacks appear to be continuing. The managing director of the Kaspersky North America office in Boston, Chris Doggett, argued that the Carbanak cyber gang, named for the malware it deployed, represents an increase in the sophistication of cyber attacks on financial firms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the silence, meaning the banks are not commenting on this. They're not talking about it. It appears to be motivated in part. So that means motivated. Why aren't they talking? Why? Why are they reluctant to concede? So this is the noun here. Their reluctance of the banks to concede. To concede means to admit, to say yes. We know about this. We're concerned too. They're not saying that. They're not saying anything. So perhaps that's because they're worried. You know, why was it so easy to penetrate, to get into their systems? So obviously they have a security problem themselves. So it could be that, and it could be also that they don't want to talk about it because it appears to be continuing. So it's still happening. These attacks are still happening at some of the banks. So maybe that's another reason why they're not talking about it. So the guy in the Boston office for this group, he argues that, so to argue means that's what he's saying. So his point of view is that they deployed these. So deploy means to send. So the malware that they sent or that they used to deploy means to make it happen. You know, like you send out the software. This represents an increase in the sophistication of something. So sophisticated means it's more complicated. It's more mature. It's not a simple attack. It's very complicated and high level. So that's the idea of sophistication, very high level cyber attacks. It's not done by amateurs, beginners. This would be experts doing this. This is likely the most sophisticated attack the world has seen to date in terms of the tactics and methods that cyber criminals have used to remain covert, Mr. Doggett said. As in the recent attack on Sony Pictures, which Mr. Obama said again on Friday had been conducted by North Korea, the intruders in the bank thefts were enormously patient, placing surveillance software in the computers of system administrators and watching their moves for months. The evidence suggests this was not a nation state, but a specialized group of cyber criminals? Okay, Alexander.
This is likely the most sophisticated attack the world has seen to date in terms of the tactics and methods that cyber criminals have used to remain covert, Mr. Yazid said. As in the recent attack on certain pictures, which Mr. Obama said again on Friday had been conducted by North Korea, the intruders in the bank thefts were enormously patient, placing surveillance software in the computers of system administrator and watching their movies for months. The evidence suggests that this was not an ancient state, but a specialized group of cyber criminals.
Okay, again, they're quoting him here again, saying this is the most sophisticated attack, so describing these attacks as sophisticated, complicated, high level, you know, very, very good, I guess. They're not simple. Sophisticated would be like the opposite of simple or easy or beginner type attacks.
Very professional.
Yeah, professional, there you go. Very professional. In terms of the tactics and methods. So your tactic is how you do something. It's basically the same word as methods, but different tactics, how they're doing it, basically. And they have used them to remain covert, so hidden. Covert is like under the radar, so you're not known. So they're able to keep doing this, you know, even now, apparently. They're not being discovered very easily. And so they remind us about the recent attacks on Sony Pictures that Obama believes were conducted by North Korea. So North Korea did them. That's what it means to be conducted by, to do. So the intruders, those who come in, you know, the uninvited. You're an intruder if you go into somebody's house uninvited. They have been enormously patient. So it's not just like a bank robbery that happens like right now, you know, in the moment, but they're waiting. They're just putting this, putting the surveillance software. Surveillance is to watch. You know, when you survey something, you're watching. Police surveillance is when the police is watching, you know, possible criminals or something do something. So the software is the surveillance, and the software watches these systems, these computers, and they're watching for months. So that's how they discover how they can attack and be effective. But it's not by a country, not a nation state, but instead maybe some kind of specialized group of cyber criminals working together, maybe in different countries even. But the question remains how a fraud of this scale could have proceeded for nearly 2 years without banks, regulators, or law enforcement catching on. Investigators say the answers may lie in the hacker's technique. In many ways, this hack began like any other. The cyber criminals sent their victims infected emails, a news clip, or message that appeared to come from a colleague as bait. When the bank employees clicked on the email, they inadvertently downloaded malicious code. Wow. Wellington.
But the question is made how a fraud of this scale could have proceeded for nearly 2 years without banks, regulators, or law enforcement catch on. Investigators say the answer might lie in the hacker's technique. In many ways, this hack began like any other. The cyber criminals send their victims infected emails, a news clip or message that appeared to come from a colleague, as bait. When the bank employees clicked on the mail, they inadvertently download malicious code.
Good. So the question remains. So it means we still don't know. We have a question. You know, how a fraud is when you fake somebody, you steal their money. That's a fraud. A fraud of this scale, of this scope, of this size, so huge. How could it have proceeded or continued for nearly 2 years? So almost 2 years without these guys, the banks, the regulators, law enforcement people catching on. So they never discovered this for nearly 2 years now. And so investigators say it's probably because of their technique. So the answer may lie in, that's an expression there, so the answer may lie in the hacker's technique. It means it might be because of their technique, which is a common, began like any other. So this is how you get viruses on your computer and stuff. You get sent an email, an infected email, so using the language of illness or something. Maybe somebody sends you a news clip or some kind of message, and it appears to come from a colleague. So you think it's your friend, your coworker, but that's the bait. The bait is usually what we think of as worms on a fishing pole to try to get the fish to bite. That's the bait. But in this case, we're trying to get you to click here so that we can put our malicious code into your computer. And so that's the bait, to try to get you to do something. And so when you click on it, then you inadvertently, so that means without knowing, without even knowing that you're doing it, you're downloading, you're allowing your computer to download malicious code. Okay, and that installs the software onto your computer, which now starts sending back the information to the hackers. That allowed the hackers to crawl across a bank's network until they found employees who administered the cash transfer systems or remotely connected ATMs. Then Kaspersky's investigators said the thieves installed a RAT, a remote access tool that could capture video and screenshots of the employees' computers. The goal was to mimic their activities, said Sergei Golovanov, who conducted the inquiry for Kaspersky Lab. That way, everything would look like a normal, everyday transaction, he said in a telephone interview from Russia. Okay, Paula.
That allowed the hackers to crawl across a bank's network until they found employees who administrated the cash transfer systems or remotely connected ATMs. Then Kaspersky's investigators said the thieves installed a RAT, remote access tool, that could capture video and screenshots of the employees' computers. The goal was to mimic their activities, said Sergei Golovanov, who conducted the inquiry for Kaspersky Lab. That way, everything would look like a normal, everyday transaction, he said in a telephone interview from Russia.
Yes. Okay, so this, doing this, that's what I'm referring to, that. So the fact that this malicious code was downloaded, that allowed the hackers to crawl across. Now, remember, they're not literally crawling across the floor or something like that, but talking about the code. So the software code can go, and like they have these bots, or it looks in the computer software for information, and so it could go through, crawl across, go through, infiltrate this bank's network until they were able to actually find the different employees who were responsible for giving out the cash transfer. So to administer means to manage, you're the person who organizes that. So if my job, I'm the bank employee and I do the cash transfers, I'm the person who administers that. Or they could remotely, meaning from another country even, connect to ATMs, and that's how they were able to make the ATMs spit out the cash, that kind of thing. Okay, so then they found that these thieves, the criminals, installed a RAT. So again, all of this is through the software. They're just installing some kind of remote access tool so that they can capture video. To capture a video means to take a video, to film something, to record something, and they could also get screenshots of the employee's computer. So that would be like if I could access your computer right now and take a picture of what's on your computer without you even knowing that it's happening. That's what they're talking about. And their goal was to mimic their activities. To mimic somebody means to do the same exact thing. You're trying to pretend like you're doing what they're doing. And so that way, of course, it would look like normal, everyday things. So it was hard to discover because of that. The attackers took great pains to learn each bank's particular system while they set up fake accounts at banks in the United States and China that could serve as the destination for transfers. 2 people briefed on the investigation said that the accounts were set up at JP Morgan Chase and the Agricultural Bank of China. Neither bank returned requests for comment. Kaspersky Lab was founded in 1997 and has become one of Russia's most recognized high-tech exports, but its market share in the United States has been hampered by its origins. Okay, Monica.
The attackers took great pains to learn each bank's particular system, while they set up fake accounts at banks in the United States and China that could serve as the destination for transfers. 2 people briefed on the investigation said that the accounts were set up at the JP Morgan Chase and the Agricultural Bank of China. Neither bank returned a request for comment. Kaspersky Lab was founded in 1997 and has become one of Russia's most recognized high-tech exports, but its market share in the United States has been hampered by its origins.
Okay. To take great pains to do something means you take a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. So you go through like a struggle, right? So they took a long time and they did a lot of work trying to learn about each bank's particular system, so specific to the bank. And they set up fake accounts. So to set up a fake account means to start an account, but these are fake, of course. That could serve as the destination. So they set up these accounts to receive the money. So the destination is where the money was going, and so they were transferring from one bank into these bank accounts, these fake accounts. So people who were briefed, people who found out the information about this, were told the information. They said this was happening at JP Morgan Chase, bank in the United States, and also this bank in China. But they did not return the requests for comment. So when a journalist is doing a report, they send requests for comment to other people, and so you either say yes, I'll give you a comment, respond to your questions, or no. So they did not return the request. They said they didn't want to do anything with it. So high-tech exports. So now they're talking about who this company is who has been doing the investigations. The market share means how much business do they have in the market related to cybersecurity, has been hampered. That means to hamper something means to push it down so that it's not really. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Trying to reconnect. There's slow down. Okay, so to be hampered means like you hamper somebody from doing something. It means you keep them from doing it. So they haven't really become that popular yet in the United States because of coming from Russia, I imagine. All right, its founder Eugene Kaspersky studied cryptography at a high school that was co-sponsored by the KGB and Russia's Defense Ministry, and he worked for the Russian military before starting his firm. When the time came to cash in on their activities, a period investigators say ranged from 2 to 4 months, the criminals pursued multiple routes. In some cases, they used online banking systems to transfer money to their accounts. In other cases, they ordered the bank's ATMs to dispense cash to terminals where one of their associates would be waiting. Wow, it's really organized. Monica? Oh, wait, Lucas?
Its founder, Evgeny Kaspersky, studied cryptography at a high school that was sponsored by the KGB and Russia's Defense Ministry, and he worked for the Russian military before starting his firm. When the time came to cash in on their activities, period investigators say ranged from 2 or 4 months. The criminals pursued multiple routes. In some cases, they used online banking system to transfer money to their account. In other cases, they ordered the bank's ATMs to dispense cash to terminals where one of their associates would be waiting.
Okay, so they're pretty organized here. All right, we're gonna run out of time, so let's just keep reading so we find out what happens. But basically, they were doing this, and their associates, the other criminals, were there to pick up the money. So it's very, very organized here. Hamid, why don't you read this paragraph here?
But the largest sums were stolen by hacking into a bank's accounting systems and briefly manipulating account balances. Using the access gained by impersonating the banking officers, the criminals first would inflate a balance. For example, an account with $1,000 would be altered to show $10,000. Then $900,000 would be transferred outside the bank. The actual account holder would not suspect a problem, and it will take the bank some time to figure out what has happened.
Oh wow! So they changed the numbers remotely on the computer, and then they just took what the difference was. So 9,000. Wow. Okay, that's very sophisticated. Okay, Emrah, why don't you read this part here?
We found that many banks only check the accounts every 10 hours or so. Mr. Golovanov of Kaspersky Lab said, so in the interim, you could change the numbers and transfer the money. The hacker's success rate was impressive. One Kaspersky client lost $7.3 million through ATM withdrawals alone, the firm says in its reports. Another lost $10 million from the exploitation of its accounting system.
Wow. Okay, yeah, so they could tell when they were checking them, and they would just do that in between the times where nobody was looking at the accounts. Okay, wow. Okay, let's see. Amparo and then Alexander, you both have one more paragraph to read.
Okay. In some cases, transfers were run through the system operated by the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, or SWIFT, which banks use to transfer funds across borders. It has long been a target for hackers and long been monitored by intelligence agencies.
Yeah, transferring money. Wow. Okay, Alexander. Last paragraph.
Okay. Mr. Dodge, like most cyber theft to Bonnie and Clyde operation, which attack Britain, take wherever they can grab and run. In this case, Mr. Dodge said the haste was much more. Ocean's 11.
Okay. These are referring to some movies, and some Bonnie and Clyde were some famous bank robbers in the United States. So they used to just break in and take whatever they could grab. But in this case, the heist, that means the theft, the crime, was much more Ocean's 11, much more like Ocean's 11, which is another movie which I don't know about, so I'm not sure. But Amparo, you laughed. Maybe you know what the movie's like. But
yes, it's so fun.
Yeah.
They are elegant.
Elegant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sophisticated.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to read this just because it's so interesting. We don't have time to talk about it. Maybe we'll have a speaking class about cybersecurity in the future, but this is pretty big, and we don't even know the extent of it yet. So banks in many countries and hundreds of millions of dollars. So check your bank account. Make sure you have money in there. Okay, guys, thanks for coming, and take care. I'll see you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye.